Hello, everyone. Welcome to Integrating Hope Narrative Therapy Sessions. My name is Andrea Wilson, and I am your narrative therapist for this Tend Her 4.0. It's so good to be here and to be spending this time with all of you. This is my third year being part of Tend Her, and it's really been an honor and a privilege to be part of this wonderful program. We're inviting many of you back for maybe the fourth year, or for some of you, this is your first year. But many of you will remember me from previous narrative therapy Friday videos, and others of you may remember me from some of the teaching videos or from our beautiful live summit last year at Little Lights on the Lane, where I got to spend in-person time with so many of you in that very, very powerful day. But for this final series, as Betsy shared, we really want to go out with a bang. And so we've prepared such a powerful month in all of the beautiful events that Betsy shared with you, and that our team of incredible women leaders are all part of creating for you. But this particular element is all about you and helping you integrate the learnings of this program in a very personal and true to who you are and where you are place. So hopefully you all have this gorgeous journal that Monica Basile has designed with the Luna moth on it, and maybe a cup of tea, maybe a cup of coffee. I want to remind you that you are welcome to do these videos at any time. We're planning on sending them on Fridays, but if you'd like, you can save them until Saturday or Sunday. Grab a quiet corner in your house, get your comfy blanket and a chair, and just really spend time with you. This program is about carving out time to help us find hope, and previous classes have been about resilience and other topics that are all about the self and really helping us in our healing journeys. And so, however you choose to use these videos, it's so important for me to know, or for me to tell you, you can't do it wrong. There are no mistakes. And as I always say to all of my classes, everything that you discover here is data and is part of the journey of better understanding yourself. So you can feel free in these sessions. You can know that you can't miss it, but that if you want to watch something again, you always can. You also can always pause the video. So I have 5 writing prompts for you today that are going to be tied to what Betsy took you through on Monday. And if you like, at each moment when I give the prompt, you're welcome to pause and just take time to write. And there's no time limit and there's no writing limit. So however you feel inspired to take these prompts and go deeper with yourself, please feel free. Feel so much freedom to do that. Also know that the work you are doing in the integration piece is a very intense essence of depth work. And I think for so long, writing and journaling was seen as something that maybe was a hobby or nice to have, or isn't that sweet that she did that? But I am here to tell you now, as a certified narrative therapist and a woman who is going deeper into the connection between the subconscious and our personal understanding and expressions of ourselves and the way we connect with those, that this work we're doing in the writing is very deep and very important. And as you follow through this program, know that your journal is always here for you as a processing place. And at any given time that you find something that your spidey senses, that's an interesting thought, or I didn't know I felt that way, or you're going about your day or doing some menial task and you get a little ping, come here and write it down. I like to think of these journals as, in a way, an archaeological dig. So you are digging deep into the self to find out what's in me. What are the parts of myself that I didn't even know? What do I believe or think, or what am I operating from that I wasn't even sure was there? And so I'm going to be giving you some prompts tonight, but your entire life is a prompt. Your upcoming week is a prompt. And part of my job as a narrative therapist is to work on creating the conditions, the container for you to explore on a particular path, maybe at a given time. But also know that part of narrative therapy and the way I work with my clients on an individual basis is that we are always in co-creation. And at any given time, we alter the path together. So if you're feeling a calling towards one direction or one topic, know that, follow that, listen to that. So much of Betsy's teaching is about listening to your intuition, developing that intuition, going deeper in what your subconscious self and spiritual self is telling you. And so I really just wanted to start today and the writing and this narrative therapy work by telling you that you are the expert in your own life. And you are the one that is taking this knowledge, bringing it into yourself, and learning the ways that it's going to best guide you into the future. One more comment on the writing, and I hope this will really help many of you wonderful women who are potentially type A, highly perfectionist based, and maybe even a little self-critical. You can put her aside for the writing. So the important part of the subconscious writing is the expression of the true thoughts and feelings. And if you get too caught up in the editor, if you get too caught up in did that sentence make sense? Am I punctuating this correctly? Was that the right grammar? You might miss her. So we're going for that deep self. We're going for those subconscious truths. Don't let the editor get in the way of that. This is narrative reflexive writing right out onto the page. And many times that might mean just train of thought writing, okay? So you keep that pen on the page and you just keep expressing, even at times if you're thinking, I don't know where this is going. All right. I hope that was an introduction that gave all of you a sense of freedom in this work. So to begin with, we're going to talk a little bit about the first element that Betsy talked to us about, was just the framework of the 4 agreements. And I am really interested to ask you all, which of those 4 agreements resonated with each of you most? You may remember them. Be impeccable with your word. Don't take anything personally. Don't make assumptions, and always do your best. So right off the bat, we have this sort of container that has been created for us by Don Miguel Ruiz, who is one of the Nahuatl leaders in Mexico. And he is helping us understand that if we get caught in the parts of ourselves that are egoic, we can find ourselves off the path. So to begin with, Betsy has given us this sort of way of beginning the work to commit to ourselves the way we want to operate in this path. And I thought a good beginning question would be to ask all of you to write down a little bit of a commitment to yourself. So in your first prompt, I want you to take the one of the agreements that called to you most, and it might be called to you in the way that you felt really drawn to it positively, or it may have felt a little bit of, tension, a little bit of sketchiness, like there's a rub. And we're going to talk more about resistance again in a minute, because that's such an important part of the class. But take the first one that comes to mind, and I want you to write to make a little bit of a promise or even a contract with yourself. In what ways are you going to, over the following month, commit to that agreement? So that's your first prompt. You take your agreement and you write. And remember all of those important elements of the way you can feel free in the writing. So this would be a moment to pause if you want to go ahead and do that writing, or we're going to go ahead and carry on. So one of the things I love to do is bring in books, bring in knowledge, is bring in ways that our collective human field of ideas and understanding is consistently being expanded. And I'm in the middle of research at the University of Iowa on looking at the possibilities of connections between mental health, writing, and constructivism. And narrative therapy is a constructivist therapy. So it's looking at the ways that we have, as a human species, collectively constructed a reality. And then it's working with each of us as individuals to understand what are the stories that we're living in, and then allowing us to deconstruct those theories, those stories. I love to look with people at how they came to those stories, what the backgrounds of them are, what their history is. And so much of that is what I do in my work with groups. And at the same time, it's a constructivist therapy. So it works also at reconstructing new stories, new frameworks of thought, new belief systems. So I love to read the works of people who are expanding the way that we see constructivism. And this book is called How to Heal by Prentice Hemphill. And Prentice writes about the somatics of healing and what it is to integrate into the body, which Betsy is going to cover in a future class. But I wanted to read you this quote, which talks about what it is to create commitment with the self. And she speaks to it from a somatic way, but I'm connecting this also to Don Miguel's work of being impeccable with our word and committing to ourselves. Prentice says, embodied practice is the call to intentionally and with awareness practice what we want to become. Very often, if we don't commit to a practice or name out loud our intentions, it can get drowned out by every other previous or imposed commitment we have. Our intentional commitment clears the room for consistency, making our intention into practice rather than a one-time event. In practice, we encounter ourselves, our barriers, and our resistances. We work with them, listen to them, as they and we transform. So you have begun that process. You may have begun that in previous years. You may have continued the work. You may be here today for the first time, but you are now in a process of speaking your intentions onto the page of what you desire and what you want, and then also looking at the knowledge and wisdom that Betsy is bringing through the class and looking at digesting it and integrating it for the self. All right. So one of the key themes that Bets talked to us about on Monday was resistance. Boy, do I love the topic of resistance, because classic resistor right here in front of you. If there is a hard way around, I will find it, and you can always count on me for that. I am someone who, you can't just tell the stove is hot. I need to put my hand on it, burn myself, and then go, that's what that is all about. They weren't kidding. So I welcome you, fellow resistors, and I welcome you to, like me, get to know your resistance. So Betsy talked to us about the types of emotions and thoughts that might be part of resistance: anger, annoyance, fatigue, numbing out, self-doubt, judgment, and one of my favorites, can't find the time for that. All of these are a compass to where we want to actually be looking. Resistance is actually a good friend of the seeker's heart, because the resistance is a big flashing light in the sky that says, there's something here, you're going to want to check this out. That's my resistance voice. In any case, as the Stephen Pressfield quote that she covered said, the more important an activity is to your soul's evolution, the more resistance you will feel. And and Betsy and I had not known she was going to use this book, but when she mentioned it, I ran up to my shelf and I grabbed it, and I was flipping through and I found the full excerpt of the area that he mentions that quote, and I wanted to read it to all of you. The book is very digestible, by the way, in, kind of these page by page wisdoms. Resistance is infallible, is what this is called. Like a magnetized needle floating on the surface of oil, resistance will unfailingly point to your true north, meaning that calling or action it most wants to stop us from doing, meaning that calling or action that it most wants us to stop from doing. We can use this. We can use it as a compass. We can navigate by resistance, letting it guide us to that calling or action that we must follow before all others. Rule of thumb. The more important a call or an action is to our soul's evolution, the more resistance we will feel towards pursuing it. Ding, ding, ding. So, your second writing prompt, back to your journal, is this. I would like you to characterize your resistance. We're going to use a little of narrative therapy here, a little of internal family systems. I want you to go within yourself and find resistance. Who is she? And I want you to name her. And I want you to write about her on this page. How has she shown up in your life? What is she always warning you about? What is she dragging her feet about? What is she digging her heels in about? How does she act? How does she show up? What emotions does she bring in you? What is she protecting you from? So, what are the patterns that you're seeing your resistance come with? All of this is just data we're gathering. All right. So, character, name her, write about her. You could even go as far as writing some stories or anecdotes of the way that she's shown up. But I want you to get to know your resistance. And once she has a name and you've personified you, hopefully getting to know her will be developing a beginning relationship with her, because she's going to hang around and we're going to use her to get to know more about where we need to be looking and where that compass is pointing. So this would be a second time you could pause if you wanted to. All right. If you've unpaused or if you stayed with me, here's your third prompt. Related to prompt 2, I would like you to write a letter to resistance, name as you've chosen. In this letter, dear my resistance, name is chosen, you are going to let her know that over this next month of April, a lot of new information is going to be introduced. You're going to be given the opportunity to try a lot of new experiences, to enter maybe into new frameworks or ways of thinking or being that you haven't maybe previously interacted with before. And this is your opportunity to let resistance know that you've got this, that you have support, that there is a team of wise women, research, resources, education, and energy all here in support of you. And Betsy mentioned when we are together, there is a collective field that is helping us do the work. We know that there are at least 1,000 women out there that are doing this work. Now, of course, we're all doing it at our different paces, and maybe some have opened the email, and maybe some are writing and some aren't, but we are here and we are connected. So you're going to let resistance know we've got this, you've got this, and that she can take a break, take a vacation, or you could even say, you're welcome to keep showing up, but I'm going to be noticing where you're showing up, and that's going to be my compass. So any of this is really your choice to work with. If you want to tell resistance to take a little seat, take a little rest, take a little vacazione, you let her go. Or if you want to say, hey, resistance, you're pretty strong, and I get that you might not listen to me and you're going to hang around, but I'm going to be working with that. So just know that, like, we're here in this together. Okay, that's your third prompt. So if you want to take a little time, write your letter, kind voice. I mean, your higher self is writing this, so you can add all the grace, all the humor, all the hey sister that you want to add in there. But the hope is that you will be opening up some opportunity inside of yourself to let resistance calm down a bit. Okay. So if you want to pause, you did. Here we are on go. We learned about hope, as a concept, we also learned about what the definition of hope really is. And how fascinating was it to learn? Hope is not an emotion. Hope is a cognitive process. Hope is an action-based essence forged through adversity and discomfort. I mean, my mind just blew repeating all of that. And I'm very familiar with this, but it never stops to be, I think, incredible to all of us. Not that I'm projecting that it should be incredible to you, but I think it's an incredible thing to realize that hope is a choice. Hope is a place where we put, well, I'm going to wait. I'm not going to answer that question actually, because I'm going to jump to your fourth prompt, which I'll show you. I want you to draw a container for hope. I was almost going to put something in your little container, and then I realized I don't want to put anything in that, because what I would like you to do is on one of your journal pages, give yourself a big container for hope, your hope container. All right, and so when you draw this big container, what I would like you to think about, and you're not going to put it inside of it yet, is some of what Betsy talked to us about. Hope is the bridge between pessimism and optimism. She talked about Viktor Frankl's incredible quote, "Hope is the space between stimulus and response." All right, hope is, remember she showed us the bird's eye views? So hope is perspective. Hope is looking differently at things that we thought we understood when we were deep down in them. Hope is space for time, space for our higher self. I just want you to make the container today. Make it big, draw it out, make it any shape you want, but put it on this page. I'll give you a minute to draw that. I'm going to draw a big one myself. So for your fourth prompt, I want you to ask yourself, what did it feel like? This is a metacognitive exercise. What did it feel like to draw your hope container and to think about space, to think about a bridge, to think about all of the concepts that you went over on Monday that could be part or are part of hope and can be brought into your container? I want you to think about possibilities. This idea that we're learning about hope is that it's more and maybe different than we thought it is. And so for this fourth prompt, as a busy modern woman, as someone who more than likely doesn't have enough time to do all the things she wants to do, or feels a constant pressure down without space to do, I want you to take a deep breath and look at this empty container and write what it feels like to have space. And this could be a moment that you pause or you carry on with me. All right. For our idea of how we look at hope and who we are when we are embodied in hope, Betsy gave us the idea of the noble warrior, the archetypal idea of a non-aggressive, action-taking being who is holding the wise hope. And I loved also the ideas of wise hope, that they're not attached to outcomes, that they are holding that idea of the call to action versus the wise hope doesn't sit on the couch. My father just the other day reminded me of an old, I don't know if it's a wives' tale or just a legend, but there's a guy, I may tell this wrong and you may have all heard it before in a better way, but there's a man on at the front of porch of his house and the flood is coming up. When, who, not important. And a boat comes by and says, "Hey, do you want to get in?" And the man was in the middle of a prayer to God. And he said, "No, I'm praying." And so he sends the boat on. And he's asking God in his prayer to help him. And two other boats come at various times and ask him, "Hey, do you want to get in the boat?" And he's in the middle of asking to be saved in this very specific way. And then eventually the man has a conversation with God and he says, "Why didn't you save me?" And he said, "I sent three boats, you never got in." And what I love about that story is the idea that things can come to us in ways that we never imagined. And we can interpret these stories in all sorts of different ways. And so while my father may interpret it, a very sort of classical spiritual way, what I have always taken from stories like that is that things are not always what they seem. And so wise hope may not always be appearing like we might have imagined hope to look. And it is your opportunity and your calling as an individual human to decide what that wise hope looks like for you and what your noble warrior, how it shall show up in this life. And so for your fifth prompt, I would like you to write about how you see the noble warrior archetype in yourself, how you relate to it, in what ways you might have found something new in that concept, and in what ways you want to call in wise hope. The hope that's not attached to outcomes, but the hope that is strong, the hope that comes deep within and believes that we are here not as humans having a spiritual experience, but as spiritual beings having a human experience. And that there may be more at play here than even we could imagine. And tethering ourselves not only to that hope, but to the action that still shows up, that still wants to be part of processes and communities and social structures to be part of benefiting others, of constructing in a world that is moving towards the arc of the evolutionary hope we wish for. I hope that these prompts have been helpful. Thank you all for spending this time with me. I'll be with you again next Friday, or whenever you choose to watch the videos. It is an honor to be your narrative therapist and to share this time with you. I'm going to finish today with a poem from a book aptly titled Hope is a Traveler. This book is by Susan Freibort. Hope is a Traveler. You step out of time, a weary traveler from some other era, from some other place, looking worn, disheveled, wearing shabby clothes, and a beautiful countenance. All of the miles between that separate our embrace now vanish in a sudden breath. Outside your smile, when suddenly the clock shatters into shining timeless pieces as you close the distance. And I wonder where you came from. No photographs or clippings to tell the birth of your infinite journey. As you walk through the portal of epic's passing, you break the glass which held the sands of once confirmed and confined yearnings. Hope is a Traveler. Have a beautiful day, and we'll see you all next time.